Welcome back to Top Shelf EDU. I'm your host, Aaron Lee. Our guest today is Josh Sadagursky, Regional Director of Enrollment at Minerva University. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. It's great to be here.
Yes, I'm very excited as well. So let's start off with a big picture question. Minerva calls itself a different kind of university. Can you unpack that for our listeners and introduce it and explain how it is different than most universities?
Yeah, there's a lot I could say here. I love that question to kick us off. And I really appreciate the opportunity to deep dive because there's a lot that makes us different that I think is not very clear from initial whatever research or kind of Googling of Minerva. So the big thing is that we follow what's called the global rotation model for our students, which really means every single year, our students are in a different country. So everyone will do year one in San Francisco, year two will be in Tokyo, Japan, and then year three and four, very likely there will be flexibility for students to choose where they spend those third and fourth years. We've got campuses open right now in Taipei, Taiwan, Seoul, Korea, Hyderabad, India, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Berlin, Germany. Maybe more in a few years to come here as well. So that is the big differentiator right now. And I don't know if you want me to go into any other aspects, but that's the big one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really impressive. I knew that they had different campuses all over. Now, when they rotate each campus each year, how are they learning? Is it, through lectures? Is it through, tutorials? Is it part of it online? Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Great question. The class sessions themselves happen on our virtual learning platform called Forum, which was this really incredible ed tech software developed for Minerva. So it's kind of like if you picture like Zoom or Google Meets or Teams on steroids, it's really neat and interactive. They're small seminar style classes. The way I describe this to students is Minerva is 100% in person with the virtual class sessions online. Students are traveling together with their peers. There's a student life team on the ground in every single city and campus that they go to. And then their research, internships, civic project opportunities, student organizations and activities, travel opportunities, all of that is in person. I don't know if that helps paint a little picture. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So the majority of their learning is online. When do they actually start doing their internships? And who helps them with that? Is that something they find on their own? Can you explain that for us?
Yep, great question. Professional development. I think this is actually, to go back to your first question, I think the professional opportunities that students have at Minerva is another differentiator in terms of just what we're offering people, right? So internships are a big part of it. Most of the time, students are doing full-time internships over the summer. Those are in person. We have, many layers of support. The big one for internships are the people we call our career and talent development team. These are people who work for Minerva whose entire reason for being is to help students find internships, help them understand how to network, when to do it, where to do it, help them really craft like a 4-year professional journey. So they will help them seek out, interview, and even point them towards opportunities they think are helpful. Those internships, again, mostly happen over the summer. Those could be with companies and orgs that we have relationships with. Those could be opportunities students are finding themselves. And they could be all over the world. They could be back in California. They could be in the country the students are living in. They could be somewhere else, right? Our students go all over the place. Second thing I'll say here is apart from those internships that most of our students do, I think the stat is like 97% do at least one or two before they graduate. What every student will do, though, are what we call civic projects for each class during each year. Civic projects are essentially mini internships that run alongside their curriculum. These are done in partnership with companies and organizations we have relationships with. So, for example, one of these civic partners in San Francisco is Adobe. Students might be tasked with developing a market strategy for Southeast Asia or come up with a social media communications campaign for Gen Z or something. And again, this is done they're getting credit for this. It's done alongside their classes. So through civic projects, through internships and then through their capstone, which I'll talk about later, I'm sure. By the way, I'm in Costa Rica, San Jose, and I think you can see some gnarly lightning
I
happening.
did.
Yeah, it's really cool. Today was a wild weather day. um, anyway, so I'll talk about capstones later. Through all those things, they will walk out with somewhere around 7 to 10 professional experiences on their resume they can use, really from at least 4 countries all over the world. That is, I think, a huge asset for our students that really sets them apart, among other things. Ramble, I'm sorry, but does that help at all?
That was incredible, and I really agree in terms of those those projects and those opportunities to build those skills and the networking within those companies. How many students would be offered a job afterwards within that company, or are they like do those companies hire right away when they're like are jobs waiting for them? But those skills and those experiences will definitely help whether they go on to grad school or they start right away in the career.
100%. I think the stat is, oh my gosh, I want to say somewhere around 94. If my boss ends up watching this, she's gonna like see everything I'm saying incorrectly, but I want to say it's in the mid to high 90s in terms of the percentage of students who have a job in a career they're passionate about or enrolled in a grad school program within 6 months of graduating. So through these opportunities, and that's a really exciting thing to start seeing for us, the data on our alumni outcomes. Um, Sometimes the civic projects they're doing throughout the academic year turn into full-time internships or turn into other opportunities, or they'll create these pathways that students just like didn't think about. There's one example I really like. Earlier this year, I was talking to a current student she, I believe she was from Spain, and she was living in Tokyo in her second year, and she's a double major. She's an arts and humanities and computer science major, but she came in thinking she wanted to just major in arts and humanities, and then through these opportunities, she realized I actually like CS. I never thought I would, and then so she, picked up that second major. Those kinds of things happen a lot at Minerva, just because they're doing things in such tangible ways.
Yeah, that's interesting because that actually leads me into my next question. I was going to say, how flexible is the curriculum, and can students design their own majors? But you've kind of answered that. But can you go into a little bit more? Are students choosing their major, during their first year, second year? Can they change throughout? How does that look?
This is one of my favorite questions to answer. Um, and I'm going to go back again to the first thing you asked about how are you different. The 4-year academic journey at Minerva is super unique, and I really, really like it. So, to touch on some of the things you just asked, the first year at Minerva, everybody takes the same 4 classes, no matter what your intended major is. There are 4 courses everyone's going to take designed to deliver what we call our habits of mind and foundational concepts. There are 76, we call them HCs for short, 76 HCs students are going to be introduced to through these 4 classes. And the way that it was described to me by a professor was the 76 HCs are a whittled down, tangible set of skills that make a liberal arts degree effective. So, for example, some HCs are like negotiation and persuasion, decision analysis, data analytics, intro to coding, public speaking, causal inference, right problem solving. Again, I could rattle them up, but there's 76. They learn these foundational skills in San Francisco their first year, still having opportunities to do civic projects, internships, all that stuff. And so after that first year, this foundational year, their second year in Tokyo is actually when they start diving into their major. So they will declare about midway through their first year, likely, maybe a little bit after. But then they're only going to actually start really diving in their second year in Tokyo. They'll take their broad level major courses, whether it's their business, computer science, or natural sciences courses. Third year, maybe they're in Buenos Aires, maybe they're in Berlin. That's when they'll start really diving into their concentration within the major. So if you're a business, maybe you'll start really honing in on like brand management, marketing, if that's what you're excited about, or cells and organisms if you're a natural sciences major. Fourth year, again, new country. The fourth year at Minerva, they might take 1 or 2 electives, but the fourth year is really dedicated for them to finish their capstone project. Starting in year three, every single student will start their capstone thesis project, which essentially is like a master's level defense. Which is why I say it's a big asset for students when they're to have that in their tool belt after they graduate. So they'll start this 2-year intensive research project in year three on a topic of anything they're interested in, really. And then they'll finish at year four. So if we go back to that first year in San Francisco, they're starting super broad with those HCs and they're getting more specific, all with the intent of like, let's help you actually be on a pathway to get where you want in life, to achieve what you're passionate about. That is the whole point of Minerva. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but like, you know, I went to UMass. I'm from Boston. If it wasn't painfully obvious, I did not go to Minerva. I'm too old, by the way, to have gone to Minerva. Um, I went to UMass, you know, giant school in the middle of nowhere in Western Mass, 40,000 undergrad, Greek life football games. Like it was awesome. I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. That is not Minerva, right? Like I would not have been a good Minerva fit. So we'll talk about fit later, I'm sure, but like it's just through that academic journey, they're so set up for success. Was my rambling point there.
Yeah, no, that sounds great because it really goes to, I know that, Minerva emphasizes active learning, and what you talked about with those 76 HCs, I believe, that's active learning. That's building the skills that will not only set them up for later that year, but for year 2, year 3, as they're moving throughout the different campuses,
Totally.
and ultimately for their capstone project that they have to defend that thesis in year 4. So that's really impressive. That's, you know, when students are active, they're going to retain more. They're going to build those skills, and that's what's really important. So
For
that's
sure.
fantastic to hear. I guess the next question, which kind of you started into it, what type of student would thrive at Minerva?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, and you're a university counselor, and I'd be interested. Could I like throw a curveball at you and like
100%.
if
Let's
you
hear
had
it.
to if upon hearing, some of those things, do you have a sense of who might thrive? And then I'm happy to answer as well, but I'm just because this is what you do, right?
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure. So for me, just hearing that, somebody that would be um, independent, outgoing,
totally.
loves to travel, loves new challenges, and I don't want to say knows what they want to do, but aren't afraid to go after what they want is kind of somebody that I would think would thrive at Minerva.
That is a wonderful answer, man. And like I'll be transparent. Like we at times have to be honest with families and have the conversation that like your student might not be ready for Minerva. And to your point, there is a level of self authorship and independence they really have to embody in some level. And you, as a university counselors, and those listening that work with students, like you kind of know those students, like, oh, they have kind of what it takes to do something like this. So you're absolutely right. The only thing I'll add too is like, our students, we usually see anywhere from 150 to 200 students enroll each year. And within that small incoming class size, we'll see like maybe 40 to 60 countries represented. So like they're coming from all over the world, from all backgrounds, walks of life, different talents and passions and motivations. If I had to pick a common thread though, to jump off what you were saying, I would say that Minerva students all are like yearning to make an impact in something. There is something they care about, whether, they want to create change with technology, or they are really passionate about the environment, or there's a social justice cause they're really into, or they want to create something, their own company, whatever it is. Like students with that kind of spark, I think it would be one of the common threads I see, if that helps at all too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really good to know. We often, as university counselors, have those tough conversations with students and families in terms of, it, we all may want to go to a certain school, but ultimately it's about the fit. And,
Yeah,
it's not about just getting in, it's about thriving while you're there, which kind of moves me into the next thing. As you talked about, those students that thrive and making an impact, we're going to move into emissions a little bit, if that's okay.
sure.
And beyond the grades, we know that Minerva is holistic, it's very selective. What do you look at in terms of the beyond just the grades
Yep.
in the holistic application?
Yep. This is also a fun one. And I'll do a little exercise with you that I like to do at college fairs with people, like if when students and families come up, because our application process is very, very different than a traditional application process. I'll start by saying this: Minerva is very selective. Like if you go, it's funny in the U.S. at least, if somebody's heard of us, they usually will know. Oh, you're the school with like the 4% acceptance rate, and like that might be true. Um, However, I'll also say the number of applicants we're getting is like astronomically smaller than most traditional schools, so like that impacts it. But all that said, we are selective. However, we have students do 3 components on the Minerva application. The first component, and this is completely done on the Minerva website. It's a free application. It's crazy that we charge students to apply to college, so we don't do that. But the first thing students will do is a series of 6 live challenges that is done in real time that will look at their critical thinking, reasoning, creativity, and expression abilities, among other things. So I'll give you an example, okay? Actually, Aaron, do you want to do a sample challenge really quick?
Sure, I'm afraid with all these listeners.
No
But
worries.
absolutely, let's do it. I'm
So,
excited.
okay. As an example, a student might see this. This maybe would be for the creativity challenge. A student might see 3 objects on the screen, and I'm gonna like look for what I have around me. Okay, I don't know what this is. I'm in an Airbnb. So let's say your 3 objects are this bottle of little gold pebbles, headphones, and a glass of water. Okay, those are your 3 objects: pebbles, headphone, and water. The prompt for something like this would be something like, and I'll use an example that like you wouldn't see on the application. So of those 3 objects, Aaron, that I showed you, which one best represents, I don't know, diversity to you?
Okay. For me, I
Shut
would
down.
say I would say the headphones would be
Okay.
the diversity. And the reason I would say the headphones is probably because students or people have the opportunity to listen to what they want to listen. So whether it's music, whether it's podcasts, whether it's, listening to shows, that just shows the diversity in terms of what's available there.
Wow. That was like quick too. You would have,
It's the only
you would
thing I
have,
could think of.
you would have had a better Minerva application than I, sir. That was great. Wow.
You
I
haven't
love
seen my grades.
Fair enough. um, so there's 6 of those challenges that kind of look at different sort of critical thinking aptitude skills. We internally, we take the average score, we will score them. Students are often, again, they're like recording themselves doing this. We look at the recordings, we score them, and we look for a specific score for them to meet, for us to have an indicator that this is a strong applicant. Because, like you think about 18-year-olds being in Japan for the first time in their life, like language is different, food is different, how to cross the street is different, right? Than they're used to. And they're taking college courses and they're doing research and they've got all these responsibilities. We want to make sure students are like, they can show that they have the budding skills at least to thrive in this environment. So that's just a very dumbed down explanation of why we do that. Second thing students will do, this will be a little bit more familiar to you. After the challenges, they will submit their top 6 accomplishments from high school. So students have space to submit these accomplishments. The important thing here is we really scrutinize the evidence that they're submitting. So they can't just write in like, oh, I was, my school's student government president or something. A better way to submit that accomplishment would be like, as my school's student government president, we ran a charity event to raise money for underserved communities. We raised this amount of money. I spent this many hours on it. I trained this many people to go and do like campaigning for me, and like here's the result. Like, and then if they do that, we also want them to submit like the receipt for the money that they made. Is there a social media post from your school that mentioned your campaign that you can submit as well? We really want to see that students are actually making an effort to make an impact, that they are showing dedication and resilience through the things they're doing outside the classroom. again, we don't expect everyone to have like 6 stellar accomplishments, but they should do their best to submit their top 6, using those parameters. After that, their counselor actually will verify their transcript information and submit some other supplemental info, and that's it. It's those 3 components, and that's it. There is no minimum grade point average we're looking for. However, doing well in rigorous courses really helps. What we typically find is that students who do well on those challenges, who have strong accomplishments, the grades sort of come with that. That being said, though, Aaron, like if a student has gone through something, you know, every university loves to throw out the word holistic. I apologize in advance. It's overused. Truly, though, if a student has gone through something there and it impacted their grades and they do well on the challenges, but it's not maybe reflecting, we are 100% going to work with them. We're going to work with you as their counselor to understand, like, the full picture. We are, we are small enough, honestly, that we can do that. Which is really great. And so if somebody doesn't have like perfect grades and they're like nervous, I really hope I would encourage them to still apply if they feel they're a good fit. If they're excited about Minerva, like it can't hurt, just apply. We'll work with them if they're showing they want it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's great, and it's a free application, as you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like how you, um, focused on just dissecting what you're looking for. So it's not necessarily the title of a leadership or something that somebody's done. It's actually the skills and the impact that they've made because, that's something that I think it's a misconception out there in terms of when students are applying, they think, I need to do all of these great things. I need all of these titles, but it's more of the impact that you're actually making and showing proof that you're actually making that impact because, we can say whatever we want to say, but having it verified makes a big difference.
Absolutely. It's a great point.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good. And so I guess the next thing is if those 3 challenges and it seems like those challenges are basically to help you see who's going to be successful with those 76 HCs as well in that first year.
Actually, yeah, that's a great point. I haven't thought about it like that. You know, I almost apologize that you have to speak with me because like I am such a Luddite. But apparently, those challenges were developed using cognitive and learning science, right? Like the science
Yeah.
of learning. And I would imagine that, yeah, they are an introduction to like who has some of those HCs already like developed within them and or who has the capacity to develop those for themselves using kind of our, guidance and curriculum. But yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I think a lot of students and parents don't really realize is when you're making these decisions, often you say that how many students, 100 to 200 in an incoming class?
About 150 to 200. Yeah.
About 150 to 200. You probably actually have a couple thousand that should be in your program, but you just don't have the room or the space. Can you talk a little bit about how institutional priorities play a role in that? Kind of explain what it is, and so listeners can kind of understand what goes behind the scenes. So if they're not accepted, don't take it personally. Like you may have had a great application, should be there, but unfortunately institutional priorities, you can only take so many students.
Great question. So actually, we don't have seats to fill. We we just really want to make sure that a student is going to thrive in our environment. And what we typically find is it's usually 150 to 200 students, or from around the world that kind of fit the bill. Now, to your point, I'll be very honest with you. I've worked with applicants who did not end up getting admitted, who I A thought should and B felt good about. I was like, this dude, and then they didn't. And that could be for a number of different reasons. That could have to do with maybe there was just something on their accomplishments that kind of like set them a little bit lower than a student. Maybe that particular year we just had really strong applicants, and it really depends. But honestly, like as far as institutional priorities go, we don't have seats to fill. Like I said, we have students from literally every corner of the world. That's not something we're really like, We want to make sure everybody has equal opportunity. Um, which I guess is a point where, like, if if we have, say, 10,000 applicants and like 2,000 are from one country, then okay, all 2,000 are not going to be admitted, right? Like that's I think true for most institutions, but it's really about fit. And like we're not going to admit someone if we don't feel they're going to thrive, because Minerva is hard, man. Like it's challenging. um, Students are forced into situations they've never been into before in a way that they would not be in a traditional university. So that's the big thing for us, if that helps at all.
Absolutely. And and that's what makes Minerva stand out as well, just how rigorous it is. And again, just building those skills, the act of learning, the experiences, moving from, country to country, it's so important for students.
Yeah.
And as you said, finding students that are it's a good fit and they're going to thrive, that's really important. Now, for international students, you know, studying in the US is much different than studying in other countries in terms of pricing. Is there any financial aid or scholarships for international students
Yes.
that may be available to them?
Totally. And because of our student body and makeup historically, the process and availability of financial aid is actually the same for everybody. Like it does not matter what country a student is from, they will all have the same access and process for our need based financial aid. We're not a federally funded institution, so the FAFSA is not applicable for U.S. applicants. So we have our own process and funds to give out in financial aid. It really depends. This really depends on a given year. Honestly, how much funding do we have that particular year? We're a smaller institution. We don't have $1 billion endowment like some of the other bigger name schools to just like throw around. But that being said, what I would encourage students to do, if cost is a concern, apply early. We'll have an early action round. Application opens August 1st. Deadline for early action will be November 1st. Please apply early. We'll work with them on the financial aid application. It's similar to what a US student would do to apply for the FAFSA, but essentially they'll fill out our financial aid questionnaire to get a kind of as full of a picture of their situation as possible. They will submit their household documents, income statements, things like that. We'll evaluate it, and then we will deliver a financial aid package based off of that. But again, everyone has the same access to that. I've seen students get about 95% of our full costs covered, and then it kind of just varies in between. Um, can never make any guarantees. So again, like I would encourage people to apply early action next year. Yeah, or once the application opens on August 1st.
Yeah. Okay. That's great advice. Now, because of the global rotation, when students live in the different cities, and it's, what is are they living in residence? Are they living in apartments? And how do they build that community when their classes are mostly online?
Great question. I'll tackle the logistics first. So we've got our own, I'll call them like mini campuses in each of these locations. It's residential urban style living apartments. They're pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. Like the res hall in Buenos Aires is this like 30-story high rise. So I hear it. If you go to the top, you've got this like panoramic view of Buenos Aires. Our residence hall in San Francisco is brand new. It's awesome. There's a giant swimming pool in the middle. Um, which is great. Although it's chilly in SF, so I'm not sure who's swimming too much, to be very honest in there. Anyway, mentally prepare if you're a student for that style of living. They're in giant urban centers, kind of these cultural, financial, hubs of the world, really. Community, though, love that question. I get that a lot. There's so many ways I can answer this. One, broadly speaking, I'll say the student life team that is in person with all the students who are responsible for cultural opportunities, maybe some civic partner engagement. They are responsible for helping students understand, like, hey, my stomach hurts. What do I do? Like, how do I go to the pharmacy in Tokyo? I have no idea. Like, we will. There's so much support for all that stuff, but they also just do an amazing job of giving each city their own soul and feel. And like they are almost all local from these different areas, so they're incredibly plugged in. Like if we have a tango dancer that wants to get involved in the tango scene in Tokyo, Berlin, Hyderabad, and San Francisco, we can help them do it. If we have an athlete who just wants to feed their like physical, side and get that energy out. We can help them find like local club level rowing organizations or whatever. Like, they'll help students get plugged in. More to community though. There are so many traditions at Minerva that I think are unique. And if they're not, it's okay. They're really cool. Like, one of my favorite traditions that we do is called a 10:01. Historically at Minerva, assignments were due at 10 p.m. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but 10 p.m. Okay. So the tradition is called a 10:01, where students from a specific country at 10:01 will cook a traditional meal from their home country for all the students. And so they'll get to share and learn from them, and we'll actually fund them to go out and buy groceries and stuff. Um, so like, all the students from Nigeria one night will cook a Nigerian meal. Um, Jollof rice, potentially. Might have gotten that wrong as well. Um, and then everyone could just learn about kind of their heritage. There are really unique traditions at Minerva where we have like almost like class houses, like Harry Potter, where someone's house might be like pyramid or ocean or eagle or whatever. And in the first week, there's a ceremony where they get presented with their like class house. It's this blank white sash. And then the idea is, over the course of 4 years, on that sash, you're going to put like signatures, pictures, patches, whatever you want. So you have this like visual representation of your entire 4 years at Minerva. There's a lot of stuff like that that really helps with community. And I'm rambling, I know, but one last thing I'll just say here, because it's such a good question. I think our students are all bonded from like the get, because they're all doing this really unique thing. They worked their what's off to get there. And they're all from different parts of the world, but they're sharing on this like crazy, challenging, awesome, beautiful journey together. And it just bonds them in ways that I've only seen. My background and career is in study abroad gap year. I've only seen these bonds in that world before joining Minerva. So it's really cool to see that. Yeah.
That's a great tradition. I love that. It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
And when students show up, so when they're accepted, when they show up on the first year, what can they expect? Is there anything over the summer where they can kind of meet some of the other people that are coming in or moving into that first year campus? Or does everybody show up and you have, I don't want to say like a frosh week, but an opportunity to meet everybody with events and things like that?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that happens every year, honestly. The first week of every new country is orientation, where we just like chill and like, let's get to know where we are before you start jumping off and doing like research and stuff. Um, but over the summer, especially the summer of the before San Francisco, their first year, there's a lot of just prep work they have to do. There's a lot of, a lot of it's virtual community building because everyone is literally all over the world. We do host though. For admits, 3 in-person admitted students days. So we did 2 in-person admitted students days in San Francisco this year and 1 in Tokyo. And students could actually choose which one they wanted to go to. And I think that really helps because, it makes sense, right? Like, if a student's putting in the effort to come to one of those, especially from another country, they're they're pretty bought in. And so it's a way to meet, right, other students who you're potentially are about to be classmates with. But there's a lot of that community building and prep work that happens before each country, honestly. Because it's like, it would be mean if we just dropped them in Tokyo and they're like, all right, see ya. Like, good luck.
That sounds great. So for anybody listening, don't worry, you will have an opportunity to meet people before you actually just show up
Absolutely.
on campus that first year. Now, because you're studying in different countries, do they need to know the language, or is English okay, or like their home country language just fine, and then they kind of pick it up as they go?
Yes. No, every Minerva student should know English, Japanese, German, and I'm just kidding. No, not at all. That would be really cruel of us. There is no language prerequisite. I will be honest, especially for those students who come from non-English speaking countries, their English level will become apparent through those challenges on their application. So if they are unable to successfully complete those challenges because of their language ability, that's, to us, okay, you're not there with the language ability. So the classes are in English, of course. The student life team obviously will all speak English. So if we partner with a company or organization for civic projects, there's also a language requirement for those liaisons and mentors at that company to have a certain level of English for us to partner with them and provide opportunities for students. So like we're never going to put a student in a civic project where they like everyone speaks Japanese and they're like, I can't talk to anybody. That wouldn't be helpful. There is no language requirement other than, you know, an English level up to you being able to successfully complete the challenges, essentially.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, what about when you're in those cities? Are there opportunities for like I know the students will be engaged within the language when they're in those cities, but do they have the opportunity to take an elective or anything to help them transition into that city?
Great question. We don't offer languages for credit. However, the student life team will do little introductory lessons on the local phrases to like keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
Like, I need the bathroom. How much does this cost? What is that? Like, I'm lost, right? Like, somebody help me. Like, all that stuff, we'll train them on a little bit. And then if a student wants to do more intensive language tutoring, 100% we can help them find opportunities within those cities to like take supplemental lessons and classes. Again, they have these urban hubs at their fingertips for all those opportunities. So it can certainly be a focus if somebody wants it to be. Yeah,
Okay, that's great. Almost done here. Just a few more questions.
sure.
So, what is one thing that you wish that I guess every prospective student and family knew about before they apply to Minerva?
That's a great question. Oh man, one thing, huh? I
Or
think
two?
okay, one or two. I mean, I'll say this, like, and I'll speak, because you are a school counselor in on Vancouver Island.
Yes, correct.
Yes, yes. I work with our North American applicants. In North America, I'll just be honest, oof, many people learn about Minerva and they're really excited. They find it really interesting and fascinating. Um, uh, and yet they'll always come back to this sentiment that is kind of like Minerva is just this alternative. Um, I would challenge people to take a little stock of where we are in 2026 and the way our world is going, and maybe not look at Minerva as an alternative, just a more relevant way to learn, honestly. There are so many great institutions out there. A lot of them still have the same practices as they did 150 years ago for some reason. And they're evaluating students the same way they did 100 years ago for some reason. And what we are trying to do is build an experience, an education, and opportunities that is actually going to translate in 2026. And I wish that more people, and no knock on anybody because it's different, right? Anything different takes a little bit of time to get used to. But I would challenge people to try and not think about it as some newfangled alternative. That was like not really an answer to your question, but that's where my mind went.
It really was though, because you hit so many great points there. As a university counselor, one of the things that we see is often people think that there's only one direct path to a certain career. So whether they want to do business or whether they want to do this or that, they think I have to take this subject or I have to do this. But in reality, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's like 30% are actually in the career that they went to school for. But it's all about building those skills, which you do at Minerva through all of those, um, courses in your first year, all your internships, all your case projects, So it's about building those skills that are actually going to be more beneficial for those students as they enter the career path. So I agree with you. It sometimes people get stuck on the name of the school, but actually look
Yeah.
at what you're learning and those opportunities that you have are going to be so much more helpful as you enter the workforce. So you hit that right on the head for me.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, for anybody that is curious or would like more information about Minerva, who can they reach out to, or where can they go to find that information?
Oh, great question. Again, because this is probably this would be largely a North American based audience, correct? Who are
Yeah, I would
listening.
think so.
It'd be great if they could just reach out to me, shoot me an email. Um, is it possible to
100%. Yeah, tell
okay.
me your email.
Should I just say okay, I'll say it. And I apologize in advance. I have a weird name. My email is Sadagursky, JSADAGURSKY @minerva.edu. Please reach out anytime. I will get back to you and we can set up a call. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that that's on the notes as well.
Thanks. Awesome.
And I guess the last question is there anything that you would like to touch on or speak about that we didn't get to today or you wish I would have asked?
Um, no, and maybe this is too inside baseball, but you did send me a list of questions you might ask. And just to paint a picture, I would like to share one of my favorite student stories from, if that's okay. It won't be long.
Absolutely.
I will
100.
shut up.
I love it.
Okay. So last year, I'm actually again just being fully honest. I'm going into my third year at Minerva working, and last year was the first time I got to see a graduation ceremony, and it was amazing because all of our students they will dress in their traditional garb from whichever country they're from. It's just such a beautiful celebration of what they've accomplished over the course of 4 years. The student speaker last year at our grad ceremony, I forgot her name, so good job, Josh. But she is from South Africa. She's from the Xhosa tribe. I cannot make the sound with my mouth, but that tribe. And she got up there and started talking about her heritage, her history, her grandmother, who was this you know, um, tribal storyteller back in the day. And then she transitioned. And that was already just like so moving and incredible to hear her perspective as somebody from that culture going through this journey in 4 different countries with all these people. That was amazing already. But then she got into her capstone project and what she did. So essentially her capstone project was doing some research on the sound waves that animal footprints make in safari parks so that park rangers could better track their movement and thus detect the movement of poachers that might be in the area. And that for me, I'm like, wait, and we do not have a campus in South Africa. Hopefully soon. That would be amazing. And
Yeah.
I will volunteer to go and do something there, take one for the team. And so the fact she was able to do that research on that specific of a topic and get that in depth with it to do a 2-year graduate level thesis on it really opened my eyes to the things that students are able to do through Minerva. And I will never forget that hearing her speak. I'm sure she's going to be giving TED Talks because wow, what a great speaker. But yeah, I loved that example and hearing her story.
That's incredible. It not only speaks to how students can choose what they want to focus on for their capstone, but the impact that you're making. We talked earlier about how you're looking for students who will make an impact, and that's going to have a huge impact on her home country. Like that's
Right.
phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but that was it, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving me the space and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time and going so in depth and just giving our listeners more information so they can make an informed decision, but also understanding how cool and innovative Minerva is. So thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in to Top Shelf EDU, your inside look at the university experience. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone exploring their path to higher education. We'll be back with more insights, stories, and advice to help you navigate your journey. See you next time.